You have aggravated me to no end. Michael Chandler is saving this show right now, this relationship between brothers, because I'm so upset right now.
What are you guys bickering about? What are you boys bickering about?
Don't you think that Fedor Emelianenko, Cain Velasquez, Mark Coleman, Randy Couture, these guys need to be brought up when you discuss who the greatest heavyweights of all time are?
Hold on, but that's not how
Dana
White's
quote is
my answer to that would be yes. Yeah, I need to hear what Go says.
Okay, so this is the headline, right? Dana White says there's no debate that Stipe and Cormier, the trilogy winner, is going to be the greatest heavyweight of all time. George is saying there is a debate because there's Coleman, there's Fedor. I'm like, come on, man. Like, we know what these two guys have accomplished is just on another level. And even going back to, like, Mark Coleman, he fought in a time when there were headbutts and stuff like. I mean, like, I think, yeah, you could say they've done great things, but I think it's very obvious that the winner of this one, when you look at what they've accomplished, what they've went through, it's pretty obvious you're going to end up, whatever debate you have, you're going to end up with these two.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge DC fan. Like, I think DC is amazing. He obviously has only been a heavyweight a couple fights. And I know Steve. What?
15-1 as a heavyweight. Remember, he started as a heavyweight through Strikeforce.
I guess that's true.
Heavyweight Grand Prix. He's actually 15-1 as a heavyweight because one of his losses on record is to John Jones at light heavyweight.
And how many wins has Stipe had in the UFC heavyweight division? He only fights. I feel like he doesn't fight a ton.
He doesn't fight as often, but what he has is the 3 title defenses.
True, but who did he defend against?
He took it
once.
He took it from Verdun, and he went on the road. That one I thought was impressive. He did that in Brazil.
Yeah, Brazil.
Then he came back. Overeem, I think, is one of them. Who are the other ones?
Junior DeSanto.
It's hard for me too because like a guy like Overeem, I think Overeem is an absolute legend, but he's also a legend. Whether he wins or loses, people don't care. We forget that he loses a lot of fights, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's the conversation that you saved.
His 3 title defenses, yeah. Ngannou, Dos Santos, and Overeem.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, he's 1-1 with Dos Santos, so he's lost to Dos Santos. He's 1-1 with Cormier, and then he also lost to Stefan Struve back in the day. But he's been pretty amazing. You know, I think overall he looks like he's 13-3 as a UFC heavyweight.
Yeah, and that's the story of a promoter, right? I mean, Dana White's not a good promoter if he doesn't say the winner of this fight's the greatest heavyweight of all time, right? You know, but then you got guys like us who actually unpack it all, think about the history of the heavyweight division, think about the matchups, think about the wins and the losses, the fact that he split with Dos Santos, split with Cormier, only fights average of 1.1 time a year because he's a full-time firefighter as well. Stipe in that regard. And
people forget, we're talking about when this fight takes place. If Stipe were to win, he'd now have 2 victories over probably the next name that you bring up, which would be Daniel Cormier. That's 2 wins over that guy. So I mean that's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, and it's true. I did forget. All of a sudden I thought DC was a 205 pounder all this time, but I forgot. Yeah, he ran through that Strikeforce Grand Prix. Dude didn't even start fighting until he was 30. You know, so that's pretty interesting, pretty crazy. So,
Cain Velasquez had 2 title defenses.
Cain to me as
well.
Cain to me, and everybody's got their biases, right?
Obliterated the record. He's only got 1 more than Cain and Randy.
Yeah, and when I came into the sport, you know, Cain was the heavyweight guy, you know, and watching him, we called him Cardio Cain, and watching the way he beat people, you know, for me, almost sentimental value of when I got into the sport, it was GSP, it was Cain Velasquez, it was, you know, all of that era of people. And then now obviously things are different. And me, I've grown up in the sport, if you will, now, and seeing the current champions is just different compared to, you know, it's like to me, looking at Kamaru and Tyron and some of these guys that are in my era of mixed martial arts, it's hard to hold a candle to Matt Hughes and GSP because they almost got that nostalgia factor, you know? So kind of interesting.
Hey, Michael, have you ever seen George and I compete in anything?
No, I don't think so.
Watch this. Ready? Okay, I guess I'll ask. Hey, who you signing with?
I don't know, man. We'll see. You know, obviously, I am, you know, I guess technically not a free agent because there's an exclusive period with Bellator right now, but it's a very short exclusive period, shorter than most. So right now we just, you know, as you can see, this is not my house. I'm here in Arizona. We rented a big 8,000 square foot home. Got my wife and my son. Yeah, it's huge, like 8 bedrooms. Because I got my family coming out. I got my mom, dad, brothers, and their girlfriends and stuff. And then next week, my wife is bringing out her family and stuff. So to say that I am in vacation mode is an understatement. But I've already spoken to my manager this morning. He's keeping me up to date. So I'm going to spend some time with much needed time with my family, and we will see who I sign with. We will have a lot of clarity, I think, in the next 7 days, figuring out what's going on next.
8,000? I mean,
I don't know. These houses in Arizona are really big. It's like this. I got lost. I actually was just carrying LaCroix, like sparkling water, to the. I was trying to go to the game room, and I walked down that wing when I should have walked down that wing. It's not, you know. We needed a lot of space. We're gonna have like 10 people here at one time. What's that?
You walked past the butler's pantry?
Yeah, there is a butler's pantry, but I just went the wrong direction. We got here last night. We got here yesterday, so just trying to figure it all out. But all that to say, I'm in vacation mode right now, waiting for this exclusivity period to wear off. Bellator has the option to waive it. To me, I don't think there's any reason why they shouldn't waive it. Let me go see what I'm worth. Let me go see what I'm worth to ONE FC, to UFC, to PFL, to these different promoters. I love Bellator. I love Scott Coker. I love what I love what they've done for me. They probably love what I've done for them. We have a great symbiotic relationship, so we shall see what happens next.
Did Coker say anything to you when you put him on the clock? Because it was kind of an aggressive shout out, but I loved it. And I'm pretty sure Scott at least appreciated it. But since then, was there even just a text exchange about about the comment itself, or just the situation you're in?
Yeah, no, he texted me. He texted me that night, said, "Congratulations, great performance, buddy." I said, "Thank you. Great show as always." You know, I mean, obviously these promotions trying to put on good shows with nobody in the crowd is a tall feat. The fight week couldn't have been better. The promotion couldn't have been better. There was good fights on the card. It was a cool, intimate arena and great setup. So I said, "Great show as always. You know, let's speak soon." He said, "You'll be hearing from us very soon." So here we are a couple of days later, and we've had a little bit of talks back and forth, but still trying to figure it out. So as you said, man, it's the fight business. Yeah, Scott Coker, you're on the clock. You know, it's kind of a shout out throwback to the NFL draft. You know, you kind of get put on the clock, and it's like, hey, you got that short period of time to make your decision. What is your decision? I'm not here for a long time. I'm here for a good time. I got a lot of fight left in me. Let's see what happens next.
How long is that exclusivity period?
I'm not going to get into the exact date, but it is shorter. It's shorter than most because we negotiated it down. Because to me, what is an exclusive negotiation period? I mean, you can still I can still negotiate with Bellator simultaneously as I'm signing short or as I'm negotiating with any organization in the entire world. But so it's a short amount of time. And like I said, hopefully we can get it waived because a lot of fighters get it waived because there's really no reason. I mean, Bellator, it's not as if I'm going out and I'm going to be able to sign a contract that Bellator wouldn't be able to, you know, give me anyway. So
now I'm going to shock you both right now, but I'm no lawyer. So my next question, I have to preface that, but no exclusivity waiving it means you can go talk to anyone, but exclusive, all that means is that you now can't talk to everyone. They're the ones that can tender you an offer, and you still have every right to go, right, and then let the period expire, and then you get to the point where you can speak with anybody. So these are just formalities and courtesies, I guess. Yeah,
formalities, courtesies, and really just boilerplate, as we call them, in the contract. When you're talking about contract, kind of boilerplate stuff. There's certain things that are just in every UFC, Strike Force, Pride, all these different contracts throughout the years. And, there's always an exclusivity period. And so right now I am only allowed to speak to Bellator, and we have only spoken to Bellator. And that's how we want to do it. That's how we want to operate. There's no, hey, what can we get from this organization? Hey, let's start talking numbers over here preemptively. My manager, Dave Martin, is about as squeaky clean and straight laced as you're ever going to find in this industry. And that's why he has such great fighters. And that's why he has such great relationships with the promotions and the promoters. And that's why we want to do it. We want to operate with integrity. If it takes a little bit longer to get a deal done, and I have to employ a little bit of delayed gratification, I'm okay with that, because at the end of the day, like I said, I'm here with my two favorite people in the entire world. We're spending some good quality time together. We'll get it figured out.
I think the same of you.
Oh yeah, you guys, you two favorite people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you two guys.
Yeah,
No, I looked over there. My wife and my son are in the pool right now, so it's gonna be fun, man. We're gonna go hang out, and it's a great time. I mean, I spoke to you guys before this fight. To say there was a ton of pressure is an understatement. The pressure that comes with betting on yourself, the pressure that comes with stepping in against a champion, a former champion like Benson Henderson, who, as we said, he's not the most dangerous guy. He probably wasn't going to knock me out, probably wasn't going to catch me in a submission, but he's not an easy guy to have a great performance against, right? He's a guy who can evade. He's a guy who understands how to make you look bad. He's a guy who could lose. I would probably beat 9.9 times out of 10, but there was 1,000 different scenarios that I get done with that fight Friday night. I get my hand raised and people say, well, but he beat Benson Henderson by split decision or by a kind of a lackluster decision. You go out there and knock him out in a minute and 2 minutes and 9 seconds with a southpaw overhand left 1-2, showing people new wrinkles in your game. It couldn't have went any better. So I'm just over the moon, man. I'm excited, and the future is bright. The best is yet to come. We got a lot of tread left on these tires, so I can't wait to go see where they take us.
Michael, I think when a lot of people think about your negotiation with Bellator, they think just you and Bellator. But how much do outside factors have to play with that? And what I mean is, if you were to get a number close to what you want, but they were to say, we're also looking to sign these guys, how much does other lightweights coming into Bellator factor into your decision in staying?
I mean, it's huge, but let's be honest. I mean, I don't want, this always ends up becoming the headline whenever you say anything, somewhat negative. But I mean, I've been with this organization for a long time. Scott Coker's been here now for 5 years or so. They signed Benson Henderson 4 years ago. They signed Josh Thompson, who retired before I got to fight him. They just signed Miles Jury, but they haven't really gone after big time talent in the lightweight division. They're pushing these young guys, the Picos and the baby slices, and now they're really high on this Valerie Laredo girl who comes in and dances in the cage, and then thers really high on the 205ers and the heavyweights and these other divisions. The lightweight division I haven't really been throwing a ton of talent, so that would be a huge thing for me. Bellator's got deep pockets. Go throw some money at these people, man. These guys know I've been making really good money over in Bellator, and these guys in these other organizations may be underpaid. So that was kind of the thought process. It weighs in the factor, and it weighs into my decision. But point, I'm just excited to sit at the table. I'm excited to sit at the table. I'm excited to have an offer pushed across the desk. I'm excited to have the ability and the prerogative to say yes or no. And there's just a lot. In 2020, when it comes to Instagram, social media, Twitter, all that kind of stuff, it's just there's so many people talking about all these different crazy matchups now. Now you got some other fighters, kind of hinting at things too. So it'll just be interesting. And as I said in my post-fight speech, the door is always open at the right time and always closed at the right time for you to make the right decision, the best decision possible with the information that you have, and all of those different factors, all the different factors that will factor in. We'll weigh the pros and cons. We'll whittle them all down, and we'll make that decision and hopefully step back into some cage in 2020.
You look like you're in great spirits, and you did mention the pressure going into the Benson fight. Had it just been one of those scenarios where it was a victory, but it maybe went the distance and it just wasn't the most impressive thing in the world, do you think you would have gotten over that and been in the mood that you're in right now? Or would that have carried just throughout this entire negotiation? Would it have made things worse for you?
It would have. I mean, because let's be honest. I mean, it's this is the thing that the fans and sometimes the media or even people who just aren't in the sport, who aren't fighters in the sport, don't realize how much of a what have you done for me lately business this is. You know, I am only as good as my last performance. I am only as good as my track record. I am only as good as what I can bring to that cage. And yeah, even though Benson Henderson, and the other problem is too, because I see it all over Twitter right now too, Benson Henderson is quote unquote washed up. Benson Henderson is a B-League can fighter. Benson Henderson is this. Benson Henderson is that. In my opinion, that was one of the best Benson Hendersons we had ever seen. The dude was coming out aggressive, throwing punches, plodding forward, throwing kicks, throwing combinations, and then I ended up catching him. You know, the good thing for me was he fought fire with fire, and that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make with me is fighting fire with fire. His best case scenario was to run away from me and try to eke out a second round and a third round slight margin victory. So yeah, the way that I feel right now is completely a byproduct of going out there and knocking out Benson Henderson. I mean, this is the first time Benson Henderson's ever really been knocked out. I think the RDA stoppage back in 2006 was 2014, 6 years ago. I think it was somewhat not necessarily controversial, but it was kind of a flash knockdown. He got hit once or twice, and the ref jumped in. This one, the ref saved him because he was completely out, you know? So to completely separate him from consciousness is a feather in my cap, because the guy is the most durable guy I've ever fought, one of the most durable guys in the entire world. So yes, the way is indicative of that finish, and it would have kind of hung a dark cloud over all these negotiations if it had been just a split decision or kind of an ugly decision victory, because that's what Bellator would have said. That's what the UFC would have said. That's what ONE FC would have said. They would have said, well, yeah, but your last fight, you just barely beat Benson Henderson, or you just decision Benson Henderson. As of right now, my last two fights, I have a total of 4 minutes inside the cage. I knocked out Sidney Outlaw at Saitama Super Arena in front of 35,000 people in Japan back in December. Now knocked out Benson Henderson in 2 minutes and 9 seconds. So last two performances, this is what you want to end your contract on.
Okay, tell me really quick here, what is appealing about ONE Championship? When you see ONE Championship, you mentioned them earlier. What have you found to be appealing about that promotion?
Well, number one, I love that mixed martial arts is an international sport. Number two, I was actually a bigger fan of Pride back in the 2000s than I was the UFC when it came to the lights, the glitz, the glam, the people dancing, the personalities of guys, the Saitama Super Arena, these big Japanese stadiums that they would fill, fighting inside of a ring or a cage, or actually Pride was mainly just a ring. The stomps, those Japanese rules. So with that being said, I love that ONE FC, ONE Championship kind of has more of that culture. 2 fights ago, having my fight at the Saitama Super Arena, I've never once in my entire life felt more like a superstar than I was at my hotel there in Japan. There was hundreds of people lining up for autographs, pictures. It was just really, really cool. The Japanese people, the Asian culture loves and respects the sport of mixed martial arts so much. And I respect what Chatri has done with that organization. I went out there, I believe it was last August or October, August, September, October at some point to watch their 1 century show, the 100th show that they put on. I watched my teammate and good friend Ong fight Brandon Vera. Eddie was supposed to be on the card, so I was interested in watching that. Watched Demetrius Johnson. They had 2 fights in one day. One of them was on TNT. So the growth of that organization, and also just being a guy who I love and would embrace fighting in the Manila, Philippines. I would love to be on the undercard, be the co-main event under my teammate Ong in Burma, in Myanmar. That guy is treated like an absolute superstar over there. They have statues erected in his image. So the idea of just going worldwide, the idea of touching every corner of the globe with my fighting skills, with the blessings that God has given me, that's what gets me excited. Not to mention the fact that my arch nemesis, Eddie Alvarez, is over there. That would be a huge fight for ONE Championship. The trilogy fight between Chandler and Alvarez that was supposed to have already happened the third time. We could make that fight happen. You know, the show was awesome when I was out there last time. They put on phenomenal shows. They do it up big. They love and respect the sport of mixed martial arts and martial arts in general. My favorite fighter of all time, Road Tang, is a Muay Thai fighter. I got to watch him live. So just be on the same card as him. You know, do some really cool stuff like that. There's just a ton of really cool, appealing stuff that you don't exactly get in these American-dominated organizations. Now, Bellator, UFC, PFL, they also have a ton of pros as well. So, but those are the things that excite me most about one championship.
Man, that's one of the best pitches I've ever heard for one championship. That was awesome.
Well, it's cool. I guess I went. Sorry, not to cut you off, but when you get into the sport, you got a couple things you want to do. Like maybe you want to fight in Vegas, you want to headline a card at MGM, Mandalay Bay, whatever. Madison Square Garden. I got the head. I don't think did I headline the card at Madison Square Garden. I can't remember, but I fought at Madison Square Garden. Didn't go my way. It was a really bad fight, but whatever. You know, then fighting the Saitama Super Arena. Those are a couple things that I checked off the list. So you check these things off, but now realizing that I don't just want to fight in the U.S. my entire career. It would be awesome to touch every corner of the globe. So it's exciting. That's what's exciting about one championship.
Okay, and then what about from PFL? What have you found to be attractive from what they do?
PFL, I like the idea that PFL is still somewhat of a organization that needs to be continued to be established. They need people to help them be established. Bellator is not who Bellator is without me helping them establish themselves through my fights with Eddie, my fight of the year candidates, 5 or 6 different fights, the blood, sweat, and tears that I poured into the Bellator organization. And in turn, they poured into me promotion, bright lights, great spots on great cards, big arenas. They helped me just as much as I helped them. But I like the idea of, you know, maybe taking an offer from PFL. It would definitely have to be a great offer. I think they have deep pockets. I think they have the ability to make me a really great offer. They fight in great markets like Las Vegas, like New York, like Madison Square Garden. They fight in, they have the $1 million tournament. Not a bad thing to win $1 million in the tournament every year. And then you just think about new talent. Every single one of these other organizations besides Bellator, you think about the new talent that is there. And, so that's what's exciting. They need more fighters to come in and legitimize the organization. I think they are a legitimate organization, but in order to go mainstream, you got to keep getting bigger names, not just big names. You got to get big names who are going to put on big performances and have big knockouts, big highlight reels, and keep people's butts in seats that you can build a promotion around, you can build promos around, that you can build some of the shoulder programming around and get that word out. There's no doubt. And it's no secret that I was one of the biggest mouthpieces for Bellator from that, 2011 to 2016 range. And so for about 4 or 5 years there, I was the face of the franchise and the organization on the TV screen, in the highlights, all the different things that I was saying in the media, all the different things that was scripted to be able to go out there in all these different promos to continue to show the world who Bellator was. I feel like I could do that with PFL. So,
okay, and to be fair, to finish the going around all the bases, if Dana White's listening, he might be thinking, "Man, this guy almost sounds like he'd rather be somewhere else than here." But you haven't said that. Tell us what excites you about the UFC, and the reason is because I think you've done a good job of explaining a lot of things from the fighter viewpoint that a lot of fans and media don't even think about. All we thinking about is money, and fighting this guy or this guy for this title or whatever. But you seem to be bringing out these interesting outliers. So I guess tell us about what's attractive about fighting for the UFC.
Well, I mean, what isn't attractive about fighting for the UFC? Let's be honest. I mean, the UFC has been around 25, 26 years. I am in the position I am in right now because of the blood, sweat, and tears and sacrifice that Dana White has put in over the last couple decades. I have made my life and living in a sport that was built by the UFC. Now, of course, Pride came out and Strikeforce came out, Elite XC, Bodog, now the new regime of Bellator, PFL, One Championship, the newer organizations. But let's be honest, the UFC started it all. Without Dana White laying the groundwork, I'm not standing here today talking to you guys, sitting in this beautiful home with my beautiful wife, my beautiful son, loving my life and having the great blessings of this sport that we call mixed martial arts. He laid the groundwork for it, and I've never even said hi to the guy. I've never spoken a word to the guy. I've never shook the man's hand. So this is a guy who I've never met. I just know him through media and that kind of stuff. But what isn't appealing about it? Khabib is there. Conor is there. Tony Ferguson is there. Dustin Poirier is there. Dan Hooker is there. Your top 6 guys right there. Justin Gaethje is there. Your top 6 guys right there. Every single person, every single real mixed martial arts fan in the entire world wants to see me fight those guys. There's not a day that goes by that I don't want to fight those guys. There's not a training camp or a moment that hasn't gone by that when I'm training for any of my last 26 fights, that I wasn't training with the intensity, the ferocity, the discipline, the stick-to-itiveness, and the vision as if I was going out to fight Khabib, Conor, Tony, Poirier, Gaethje. There hasn't a moment that hasn't went by. I've never once taken a backward step. I've never once slipped off. I've never once diminished or watered down my discipline, because every single moment that I was training as if I was fighting the number 1 lightweight in the world, so I could become the number 1 lightweight in the world. With the UFC, I get that opportunity. With the UFC, I get that big stage. With the UFC, I get that big promotion. I'm going to be, getting to do these interviews. It would be a big signing if I sign with the UFC. I've already said I don't want a top 20 guy. I don't want a top 15 guy. I want a top 5 guy. Either I'm going to sink or I'm going to swim. I want to get thrown into the lion's den. I want to get thrown into the shark-infested waters. I want a top 5, top 6 guy right away. And either I'm going to prove myself and all of my believers correct that I am the man, or I'm going to prove all the naysayers right that I wasn't, and that's what gets me excited. 20 years ago, I took a chance on myself and walked onto the University of Missouri wrestling team when everybody around me said, don't do it. You're just going to be a punching bag. You might not ever make the team. You might not ever wear the singlet. I said, forget it. I'm going to do it at the highest level. If I do that right now, that's what I want to do. There's a lot of people saying, hey, take the easy money here, take the easy money there. At this point, for me, it's not about the easy money, man. I want the hardest fights possible. I want to bleed. I want more sets of stitches. I want fights of the year candidates. I want a concussion. I want to go out there and I want to pee blood the next day and not be able to walk for a couple of days because the entire world says, man, Michael Chandler is an absolute savage. I thank God that he finally came over. That's what would happen if I signed with the UFC.
Damn, man, that's crazy.
That was one hell of a fight, dude.
I'm glad we were never late on the rent, man.
I know.
Hey, listen, man. Hey, the funny thing is, I would step into a cage and get into a knockdown, drag-out war and die inside of a cage. But I would never actually ask you guys for rent if you were late, because I'm non-confrontational in those kind of scenarios. But when it comes to getting inside a cage, I want to freaking hurt somebody, man. And it's pretty crazy. Like I wanted to put my fist through Benson Henderson's head whenever he went out. Like, and that's just the thing, man. I got this thing in me, and it's gotten bigger and deeper and nastier with age. And I think it's becoming a father. I think it's getting settled into my marriage. I think it's realizing that I, have these 2 heartbeats to take care of every day. And at 34 years old, I feel better than I was at 24. I just went through, and this is one thing too, just to keep in mind. I just went through the hardest and longest training camp of my entire life. It was 16 total weeks, 4 weeks of quarantine, and then I went right into a 12-week training camp down in Florida, sparring a couple days a week, grappling, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, strength and conditioning, 12 straight weeks, never once had an injury, never once felt overtrained, never once had anything holding me back. At 34 years old, just turned 34, by the way. At 34 years old, I feel better right now, more recovered, less sore, less injured than I ever have in my entire life. I seriously think I'm reverse aging. So right now is the right time to go into free agency. So I'm excited.
Do you know that, as ridiculous as it sounds, if we did like a GoFundMe and we put the video of you saying everything you had just said, I bet you everybody would pay whatever you want just to see you fight those names in the UFC. That's how fired we got right now listening to
I
that.
loved hearing Stitches, Fight of the Year. I wasn't too thrilled about
I don't want
peeing
to pee
blood and
but-
concussions. I don't want you to get concussions.
Listen. I've peed blood like 6 times in my career. It's not that big of a deal. It's just one time. You pee blood once and it goes away. I peed blood after this last fight actually because of that body shot that Benson hit me right in the ribs, and I got a couple. I think at least bruised ribs or at least like some torn cartilage because it's crackly in there. But it's no big deal, man. And like I said, man, the most important thing in my life is taking care of my wife and son. So yeah, when I say I want concussions, I don't necessarily want concussions, man. But it's been a while since I've been in a knockdown drag out war, and I thrive inside knockdown drag out wars. And as I said before, Benson Henderson's best chance of beating me was running away. When you fight fire with fire with me, when you stand toe to toe with me, you're going to get knocked out. And that's why I like the idea of fighting Justin Gaethje. That's why I like the idea of fighting Dustin Poirier. That's why I like the idea of fighting Khabib with the wrestling aspect of it, because I truly believe I'm a better wrestler than Khabib. I think I beat him in a wrestling match. I think I beat him in a mixed martial arts wrestling contest and in a fight. So that's what gets me excited about fighting those guys. And God dang, man, I'm ready to do it. So, but we'll see. As I said, I would also be just as happy getting an awesome, amazing deal from Bellator, retiring with them. I already have all the records in the record books, being the most decorated Bellator fighter of all time, getting a job on the mic behind the desk too. There's a bunch of different scenarios I'd be happy with. But the one that stirs my soul the most, we'll have to see.
Ooh, I thought he was going to actually give an answer. I was like, whoa, okay. Hey, Chandler, did you have one more?
I have one more.
Okay, go ahead.
Want me to go?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's right. He kind of did it himself. I was wondering, when we booked you on the show, there's a little chat room here, and people kind of just start booking fights for you. And they say, wouldn't it be great to see him against this guy, that guy? And you kind of talked about you want top 5 guys. So I have the USA Today sports rankings here, and I have the top 5. I'm going to go through it. Can you just give me a couple words, couple sentences, whatever you want on these guys and what a matchup would be like with them? And we'll start at number 5. And our rankings, number 5 is Conor McGregor.
Obviously, that's the biggest fight in the entire world. There's so many different ancillary things, outside things that come with that. Conor, it would be the greatest honor in the world to step in the cage against the greatest combat sports icon of all time that we'll probably ever see. With that being said, toe-to-toe, hand-to-hand combat, I think, as I said in my post-fight scrum when I was asked about it, I think you would see shades of Conor versus Diaz 1. He's going to land the big shots on me. I'm not going to go down. He's going to get tired. I'm going to pick him up, put him down with some wrestling, beat him up really badly on the ground, beat him, and then in the second round, beat him up badly on the feet with my pressure, my combinations, punches to the head, into the body. He's going to get so tired that I probably finish him. I don't think with punches, but I think with a submission in round 3. So I would finish him right around that second, third round. That would be my guess with how that goes. I just think as a competitor, I'm just more of a dog than he is. I'm willing to go deeper. And there will be that moment where I'm bruised and I'm bloody and I'm looking across the cage and he's doing this kind of thing, but he doesn't truly believe that he really wants to continue to fight. And that's when I go in for the finish, the second or third round.
Number 4 is Tony Ferguson.
I love that fight because Tony Ferguson, I think, scares me more than anybody in the top 5 because he's a wild card. He's a wild card. He's a crazy man. So that's probably the guy that I want to fight the most. Let's be honest, man. I'm not a guy who shies away from a challenge. I want to get thrown into the fire. Tony Ferguson he's a nut. He throws punches and bunches and elbows and knees and kicks. You don't know whether he's about to roll under you, do a front flip, a back flip, or just to hit you with a solid technical jab. So that fight is probably the biggest wild card in my mind because I don't know how that fight goes. That fight could be so fast and so quick that I end up getting into a crazy exchange and I knock him out. Cause I think I have the power to knock out anybody in the entire world at lightweight. I truly believe I look at these lightweights like mere mortals. They get hurt often. A lot of them are very weathered. I haven't taken a lot of damage in my last 10 fights. A lot of them have. So I think I finished Tony via TKO, in the third round. It would probably be a 5-round main event. If we fought, but I'd finish him in the third round, I believe, similar to how Gaethje did. Tony Ferguson is not going to necessarily be separated from consciousness, but he will eventually kind of go zombie mode. And I'd be able to, as you saw in my last fight, I was able to improvise, adapt, overcome, and make adjustments inside the fight. I would be able to do that with Tony within the first couple minutes and make those adjustments and finish him in the second or third.
Coming in at number 3 is Justin Gaethje.
That's my favorite fight. That one right there, because we're gonna run, sprint. I will have never sprinted towards anybody so fast in my entire life than I would Justin Gaethje. We'd meet right in the middle. We'd fight fire with fire. As he said, I loved what he said, because I actually was a fan of what he said. He said, I want to go out there when I fight Khabib and create car crashes. You know, I want to step in that cage, and every single exchange is another car crash. And we're going to find out who the better crash dummy is, who the tougher man is, who the guy who's willing to dig deeper. I think that is me. I think I've always been a better competitor than him. I was in wrestling. I am in mixed martial arts. I'm a fan of his style. I'm even a fan of him cleaning up his style a little bit and being a little bit more technical and diplomatic with his style. So I think the last Justin Gaethje that we saw against Tony Ferguson was the best Justin Gaethje we have ever seen. And I would love to fight that Justin Gaethje, and I would love to mix it up on him. That one right there, I think, would be, if I did finish him, it would be late in the 5th, just like Eddie did. I believe it was Eddie. He finished him late in the 3rd or late in the 5th, because Justin Gaethje does not go down quick. But that right there would be probably the most exciting fight in the entire lightweight division. That right there, Chandler versus Gaethje, may be the greatest fight, the most exciting fight that MMA fans have ever seen. Better than my fights with Eddie Alvarez, better than all the different fights that are in your top 5. Chandler versus Gaethje is the most exciting mixed martial arts fight of all time.
Dustin Poirier.
I just met him for the first time this past week. He was cornering Hamas or Sabah Hamasi or Samas, or I forget what his name is, with ATT out there in Connecticut. And extremely cordial. Dustin Poirier is actually one of my favorite guys in mixed martial arts, I believe. I think he's got the heart of a champion, the heart of a warrior, but he's also got a heart of gold. He makes it no secret what he fights for: his wife, his daughter, his foundation, helping people, making this world a better place, leaving this world a better place than when he found it. But that fight right there is also extremely exciting. That fight right there, I think, he doesn't have the power to knock me out, but he does have the punches and bunches. He does have the technical in the pocket boxing. But I think he's a little bit smaller as well. I think he's a guy who's made 145 before. So I love that fight for me. I love that matchup for me. I think that, I would never disrespect him, but I think that fight right there in the top 5, I match up the best against him in order to have the best path to victory in the top 5, top 6, except for Conor as well. So those two.
And that last one, the UFC champion, Khabib.
Khabib, man, what can't you say about Khabib? I think, you don't get that large and long of a undefeated record without being a dominant fighter. To me, I think a lot of tells were shown whenever he fought Al Iaquinta and he wasn't able to take him down. I don't think Khabib is going to be able to take me down. I think Khabib is going to realize within the first couple exchanges how hard I hit. And because it's different getting into an exchange with a guy who hits hard, but you can change levels and take him down. It's completely different and a completely different animal getting into an exchange, a striking exchange, that when you change levels and you go in for the takedown, the wrestler or the man that you're about to try to take down you're not going to be able to take him down. And that's what happened with Al Iaquinta. And Al Iaquinta is not a good. I love Al. He's a good friend of mine, but Al Iaquinta is not a good wrestler, just compared to me, to say the least. I'm a Division I wrestling All-American. Khabib is not taking me down, and if he does take me down off of some kind of crazy scramble, he's not holding me down. If I want to take Khabib down, I believe I take him down. If I want to hold him down, I don't know. I don't think we've ever seen Khabib on his back or on the ground in the bottom position. I don't know what his ground game looks like. To me, he's a sambo guy, so he's more of a wrestling. He's got more of a wrestling style than he would say a jiu-jitsu style. So I think he's actually easier to hold down than a jiu-jitsu world champion would be to me, because Sambo is closer to wrestling than BJJ is as far as those reactions go. And then from then on, when he can't take me down round 1, round 2, desperation and frustration starts to sink in. The heart rate goes through the roof. We don't see the same Khabib that we are normally used to seeing. Then I come forward, hands up in the pocket, throwing combinations, highs, lows, hitting it with big shots. And I'm not going to say I necessarily finish Khabib, because I think he's got an extremely strong chin, and he's extremely durable. But I think I definitely finish him via unanimous decision. Not finish him via unanimous decision, but win via unanimous decision.
How bad do you want to jump in that pool?
Pretty darn bad. I mean, it's hard not to. It's hard when Goes is over here freaking. Okay, this guy. Like, it's like dream matchup. It's like, okay, we got a steak. We got your favorite pizza. We got some French fries. We got your favorite fish. And how are you not supposed to be salivating when you're sitting over here thinking about those different matchups? Plus, just, I also want to give the fans what they want. I mean, in a dream scenario, I'm put in a position where I can make that decision.
Well, I asked that because I had the one last question, but it'll be quick.
He means the swimming pool.
What?
I think he means the swimming pool outside. How bad do you want to jump into that pool right now and be
done?
done?
I mean, is that what you were talking about?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Well,
I had one more question, but I know you want to jump in that pool. All right. The question is, how often do you talk to Ben Askren, and will something like this be discussed? Hey Ben, you were the Bellator champ. You then became the ONE champ. And then you retired. Were you at peace, or are you thankful for getting the chance and going to the UFC and competing and knowing that you did get in there against, the best guys, some of the best guys in the world? I'm not saying Bellator and ONE doesn't have that, because they do. But I'm saying, like, the consistent depth of the roster. So he only had the 3 fights. It was all in 1 year. It was an incredible year. But do you know him? Do you still keep in touch with him? And would you ask him something like that? Because I got to imagine there's some parallels there.
Yeah, there's parallels. And yeah, Ben and I are still very close. We speak all the time. And I have actually called him for advice. Hey, man, Ben, you know my scenario. You've been in all these different organizations. What is your thoughts on this? What's your thoughts on that? What's your, because Ben's always been like a big brother to me. Ben has been like a mentor to me, a sports mentor, if you will. So I could call him up. I could call Tyron up. And I actually spoke to Tyron too during quarantine about it all too, just talking to him about all, hey, you guys know the industry. You guys have been around the industry for a long time. You two are the reason I got into the industry, and you guys have both had great successes in numerous organizations around the world. Ben and I will say, are a little bit different. Ben truly was ready to retire because he didn't necessarily have the passion for mixed martial arts. Ben has very, very, very successful and lucrative Askren wrestling academies across the country, and he's making a really, really good living, and he's impacting a ton of young wrestlers' lives and doing his calling. He's living out his calling. So he was completely content, and he's completely doing extremely well. So he was content retiring. Me right now, I'm not content retiring. I am 100% full bore, 1,000% committed to being the best lightweight in the world and being the best version of myself. So we're on a little bit of different playing fields in that regard. But, I don't want to get into really what Ben's advice was necessarily, because it might get into too much of my psychology of where my head might be at or whatnot. But Ben was very non-biased. Ben also is very blunt, and he's like, hey, Michael, you got this level of talent. PFL has this, ONE championship has that. Ben loved his time in ONE championship. Ben loves Chatri. Ben has a phenomenal relationship with Chatri. But Ben has a great relationship with Scott Coker and Bellator and even somehow ended up having a good relationship with Dana after they had hated each other on social media for all those tweets and all those years. So it's just nice to have kind of big brother mentor figures like that. But I think Ben himself would have been completely fine just sailing off into the sunset, being the owner of Askren Wrestling Academies. And then he got the opportunity when the UFC and ONE made those trades. And I'm not there, though. I'm in a completely different spot. After going out there and finishing Benson Henderson in the first round, I feel like I could go step into the cage against any lightweight or welterweight in the entire world tomorrow and win. And not just win, but win in a dominant fashion.
Michael, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We spent a lot of time here. We covered a lot. It's always fun. The clock goes by, man, talking to you. But I'll tell you what, I get more excited about the sport every time I do talk to you. Wherever you go, obviously, we'll back you. The fans will back you. You got a tough decision, but I think it's going to be a fun process. But, yeah, I mean, we would love to keep checking in on you, and hopefully we can have you on, after you make your decision, because we'd love to hear the process and everything.
Yes, sir. We can make that happen. Well, I appreciate you guys. It's been a long road since the no-name kid named Michael Chandler, who had just signed with Bellator, walked into Mandalay Bay MMA Junkie Radio, right? And my manager, you got to give Randall credit. My manager Randall said, "Hey, you guys, you got to interview this kid. I'm telling you right now, he's going to be great." And I'm not sitting here saying I'm great, but what I am saying is I've been in this sport for a long time, and we've had some ups, a lot of ups. We've had a few downs. We've had a lot of fun. And I love the blessings that this sport has afforded me. And I'm glad I could be on this journey with you guys. Like I said, the best is yet to come. There's a lot of gas left in this tank. So can't wait, man. I'll see you guys at the top.